Hi everybody, and thanks for tuning in today. My name is Patrick Harrop. I'm owner of Absolute Power. Today's video is a serious one, and it's based on the recent earthquake in Northern California, and we thought that it would be a good service to the public to let them know how to convert to propane in the event of an earthquake or other natural disaster that takes out the gas line. Okay, the first thing we need to do is assuming an earthquake has occurred, and we have tuned into the emergency radio, and we have yet to receive any instructions on what to do. So the first thing we do is we're going to turn off the natural gas line, and that's located right here. I've just got an ordinary 14-inch pipe wrench, and what I'll be doing is just turning that 90 degrees until the valve is in the off position. Okay, now we're going to go to the generator. Okay, so to convert to propane, you're going to need some equipment, starting with, in this case, a 30-pound propane bottle. Yes, you can use a smaller barbecue bottle, but you won't get much time out of it. Based off an 11 kW switch to propane, this 30-pound bottle at approximately half load will last you about... Moving on from the propane tank, we've got our two-stage propane regulator with a 10-foot half-inch LP hose. Now for larger units, please consult a pipe fitter that can give you the appropriate size for your size generator. But for the 11 kW up to the 17, you will be able to get by with the half-inch by 10-foot LP hose. Okay, so we've got a coupling, in this case 3/4, that we'll be using to tap into the existing line, and then we've got our reverse thread that will go internally into the propane tank. Now these are universal fittings. You may know it as going external, but in this case we've got an internal thread. And in this case, we purchased this through CanWest Propane. Thanks, CanWest. Tools we're going to be requiring are Teflon tape, which is yellow, and it's very important that it be yellow. We've got a pair of pliers, which I'll show you why we need that in a moment, and of course our trusty pipe wrench. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Patrick Harrop. I'm owner of Absolute Power, and today's video is on converting your generator to propane in the event of an earthquake or other natural disaster. Now, I'd first like to say that what I'm about to do, I'm not condoning anyone else to do. They should consult a ticketed gas fitter, and that this is just a general announcement to help people familiarize themselves with converting to propane. That being said, we have already turned off the main gas valve to the home because we have simulated that the main natural gas line has been severed, and we have tuned into the radio and we're awaiting instructions, which we're still awaiting instructions. So that being said, with the main valve turned off, just as an added safety, I got to turn off the maintenance valve to the generator. So we have turned off both sources, and now what I'm about to do is, in this situation, we have done this install, and you should make note of this is the way it should look. I'm going to remove this tie to allow me to remove this pipe, and that's where the pliers come in. Okay, and that will free up our flexible hose so that we can then remove it easier. Okay, so I got my trusty pump pliers, 14-inch pliers, available at all hardware stores, and I loosen the union, like so. Now, it should be snug, but it should come off just like so. So once we've got it loosened, you should be able to remove it by hand. Now that we're disconnected from the existing line, I need to take this flared connector out because we're going to need those threads to connect So I carefully back it up. It'll be a little snug, and it will continue to be snug probably for about 3-4 turns due to the Teflon tape that should be on the threads. So I remove that. I look inside to make sure there's no debris inside, and also inside the hose just to make sure that there's no debris from the original installation. Okay, so we've got our 10-foot hose now, and we're going to reconnect the fitting that we removed, and we're going to use a couple bands of our Teflon tape. Yes, there is some residual, but that's not good enough. We want to make sure that there's no possibility of leaking. So what I do is I start from the first thread, staying just a little back, and put a band and 2 bands of the tape and just pull it tight, and then I start by going backwards to make sure the threads are seated. Then I go forwards, and I'm just going to tighten that as much as I can by hand, and at that point I'm going to connect to our flex line. So as you can see, what we're doing is we're starting from the end of the hose. The propane tank is not connected, and I've connected all our pieces to our flared nut, which I will then again start by going backwards to make sure it's seated, and then I will just proceed to spin that on until I can't spin it no more, at which point I will get the trusty pipe wrench and make sure it's nice and snug, because you don't want the vibration of the generator eventually loosening it. So I will then tighten this up. I'm actually going to, before I tighten the union, which is how we initially got the fitting off, I'm going to give that an extra turn to make sure that is nice and snug. Now, we don't have to crank these home, people, because the Teflon tape is filling in any gaps, and it will take care of it. And as regards to the flare fitting, as it seats, it creates a leak-proof seal. So I'll just snug that up. As you can see, not a lot of force, but I made sure that every fitting, all the way from our 10-foot hose all the way through, is snug. The other end of our hose now will go to the propane bottle. Now, you might want to have a few of these on hand. Please consult Absolute Power for different configurations, to have things ready on standby. For our case, we've just got the one propane bottle, 30-pounder, and as I may have mentioned earlier, it's a reverse thread, and so we're going to snug that in. And you may notice brass fittings going into brass to brass does not require Teflon tape. It's only the steel pipe going to brass or any other dissimilar metals that require the Teflon tape. So brass to brass, we're okay. And again, I've done it finger tight, and then I'm going to make sure we have a leak-proof seal before I go turning anything on. So I'm just going to give that a few turns and make sure we're snug, and then I will just go through the whole line and make sure everything is secure. Okay, so now we have almost completed switching the unit to propane, and as you can see, it doesn't take very long, but it is important to maintain safety. Now remember, we have simulated that the natural gas line has been severed. We still haven't received word when it will be restored, nor instructions on what to do. Okay, so at this point, we're going to open the lid. we're going to gently lift up and pull away the front cover, which will give us access to the unit. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the unit to off. Now, what may have happened is that it may have started running, but it ran out of fuel, and so you will see on the side of the unit a red light. And it may say on the display overcrank. And what that means is it basically tried to start, but there was no natural gas available, and so to protect the starter, it went into overcrank. So now I'm not going to simulate that, but for all intents and purposes, if you do see that red light, at that point what you want to do is switch the unit to off. Okay, so it will be, you'll see it in auto, the red light will be on, and it will say alarm overcrank. Turn the unit to off. Then what we're going to do is hit the escape button, and then we're going to scroll over using the arrow keys to the submenus. When submenus flashes, hit enter. Go down with the arrow key to edit. Edit will flash. Hit enter. It will ask you for the language. We don't care about the language. We're going to be hitting the arrow key, at which point the fuel selection comes up. Now it says NG, that's for natural gas. So we're going to hit enter because we want to change that to propane. We hit LP, we push enter. We're now ready to go, or the board knows it's ready on propane. We've got one step left, and with the 2013 Evolution series, they provide a very simple way to convert. Now this label should be left on the unit, and for those that don't see it on their unit, please watch closely. So all I'm about to do, now this being 11 kW, and each unit has them a little different, but it will be the same valve in a different location. So in this case, we're currently set in natural gas. I'm going to turn this valve 180, and it's full travel, and that's it. We're now ready to start it on propane gas. So what I'm going to do is I replace the cover, and I'm going to put the unit in manual. Actually, correction, in this case I should put it in auto because power may still be present, in which case you may not need to run the generator. So I'll put it in manual for our situation, and I'm going to confirm before I do that the gas is in fact on, and then we begin. Now we are going to have some air in the line, and so it will want to crank a few times, and but that's okay. So here we go. We are now on propane. Now, you can, through power management, you can keep that bottle going as long as possible by just using the essentials. You don't want to use too much power because the more power requires more fuel. So you want to conserve the fuel so you're not going to get more propane earlier than you need to. Simulation is over. We want to switch back to natural gas. And for a lot of cases, gas fitters will be extremely busy, and you need to do this yourself, but I highly recommend that you have a gas fitter put everything back together just to make sure that everything is done according to code. Okay, so first off, what we're going to do is turn off the unit. Once the unit is completely stopped, what we're going to do is we just push the escape key, and we're going to toggle over until the submenus flashes. We're going to hit enter, and then we're going to go to the edit function till it flashes. We're going to hit enter. Now the language comes up first, that doesn't matter, so we hit the arrow key, and what comes up next is the fuel selection, and we're going to hit enter. We're going to switch that to natural gas, and we're going to hit enter. Okay, so now we're selected to natural gas. We're going to get out of here, and Then, most important, next important I should say, is we're going to turn that dial back 180 degrees to its original natural gas position. And then we close the lid and we proceed with first turning off your propane. Otherwise, whatever's left in that tank will soon be gone. Okay, so now what we have to do is remove the fitting that will give us the flex line. So again, it's this union is the way to do it. The union is a part of the flex line. So what I'm doing is I'm just firmly grasping the flex line while I'm loosening the threads of the propane hose. So bear with me, folks, and there we go. So now we've got them disconnected. I'm going to need this flared fitting back, and so what I'm going to do is see if I can just, yeah, okay, so being just snug, I've been able to just pop that off. You might need to put the pipe wrench on here and then turn it, but we're okay. Okay, so I want to put another coating of Teflon threads on there, or Teflon tape, I should say. And just holding it, my thumb being one thread down, because you don't want these this Teflon tape to go inside the engine, because that would be very bad. So I put on my coating of tape, and then I, starting by going backwards again, then go forwards, and hand tighten that as much as you can. Then what we're going to do is just holding everything in place. We just want to get that nice and snug to the point where you are confident that is not going to leak on you. Okay, that's good. Now I'm going to put the union back on. Now again, be very wary of cross-threading. If that happens, you're guaranteed to leak, so be very careful. Okay, that's about as much as I can do by hand, and so what I'm going to do is holding the flex line in one hand, you want to just tighten that as much as it's possible. As the fitting seats, it will provide a leak-proof seal, and there we go. We're tight. Okay. Now I'm going to get another tie wrap on there. That is another video. I'm going to then turn on the gas here, and slowly, don't turn on too quickly, because this is a diaphragm inside, and then we're going to turn on our main gas valve. Okay, turn the main gas valve on to the meter, and because we've received a report from Fortis, or our local gas company, that the gas is safe to turn back on. So now that we've converted back to natural gas, at this point we're going to start it in manual just to make sure all the air is purged out and that it's ready to run. Now please stay tuned for our next video on what to have in your emergency kit in the event of an earthquake or a major disaster.